did, Nancy? Right. Okay, we call this Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission Public Hearing Regular Meeting for Thursday, August 15th, 2024. It's now 7:00 p.m. Roll call. Steve Maria.
Yeah.
Jonathan Kastner. Yes. Al Perry. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting a little gargle here tonally from you. Marion, can you hear him fine? Daniel, can you hear him fine?
I can hear fine, a little gargled, but mostly fine.
I
Same.
could, and then it sounded like it stopped. Tony, can you say something?
That work?
Oh, yeah, you're good.
You still good?
Yeah,
Marion Stay.
here,
Anna Smith.
Here.
And Tim. Bugaielli. Here. And I'm Tony Baldwin. All right, on to audience of citizens. Citizens may address the commission on items that are not listed on the agenda. So we got some people here in the audience. Anything that you want to talk about that's not on the agenda? All right. Anybody online? Okay, on to item 3, approval of the minutes for July 17th, 2024, regular meeting. Assuming everybody's had a chance to read those minutes. If so, looking for a motion to approve. I move to approve the minutes from last meeting, Tony. Thank you, Al. Look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. If I call your name and you weren't here, forgive me. So Jonathan. Hello. Minutes, good, yes, no? Oh, I'm sorry. The minutes. The minutes. Oh. Yeah, we should do that. Okay. Stan, I think you weren't here, right?
No, I wasn't present.
Mary? You're muted.
You're muted.
I was not here, sorry.
Right? If you read the minutes, you know. I know, I can do that on time.
I did read them. They're always good.
Daniel, were you here?
I was approved.
I clearly didn't read them, so I'm staying on. All right, on to item 4, public hearing. So I guess we'll open the public hearing with special permit application, new single family home over 4,000 square feet in the gateway zone. Mary World Lane, map 69, lot 8, applicant Phil and, forgive me. I'm gonna butcher your name. Thank you. Is there an agent or applicant here that is to present this? That's me. Okay. Take it away, say your name and give a brief description on what they're after.
We currently live by this house.
Please state your name.
Oh, sorry, Philip Cole. I live at 40 Lob Lane, Deep River with my wife, yeah. And we abut this property, which is the subject property. And we are going to be, would like to build a new house that's going to be, it sounds grand being over 4,000 square feet, but the 4,000 square feet is the garages and the mechanical rooms. So the actual living space is significantly smaller. It is a downsize from where we are now. And we had the septic system was approved by the authorities in favor, and Roger Lamiga did the original design and he updated it recently showing the new floor plan. As you will see in the drawings, it's a very sort of contemporary house, flat roofs. We are doing everything that we can to mitigate the impact on the property. We're obviously the very visible spot, thanks to a house that won't be mentioned off to the left here. We are not planning to clear cut the hillside. Make that quite clear. I did meet with the Gateway Commission on 2 separate occasions. And then we had a meeting with them last month. And they've seen where the house is staked out. They've seen which trees we're going to unfortunately have to cut down. But also bulk of the trees which are from here down are all going to stay. The area where the septic system is actually somewhat clear. I guess that's where they did more test holes and things, so they did clear that area. Our goal is to have the least impact on the property. We're doing a green roof so that we're going to also have a permeable driveway. So the current driveway is paved up to about here. When you come to our property there, that will all be permeable driveway, so that we should not be contributing to any additional runoff on the property. The roof itself, the green roof, has the ability to hold significant quantities of water in heavy downpours, and it's an accepted method of, doing storm control. The other thing, being a flat roof, you don't have that high-speed runoff from a pitch roof. And we're not using any gutters, so which also tend to concentrate outflows of water. There will be solar panels on the back section here, but basically we shouldn't be contributing anything more than's already happening on the property. And that's really it. Do you want to see any questions?
Okay. Usually open it up to the public first, and then we'll get the commission.
Sure.
So, anybody from the public would get in favor or against, neutral?
We live in a budding property.
Good, what do you think?
My name is Fred Alexander. It's my wife, Karen Klockner. And we did have the opportunity to review the plans. And we think it's going to be a lovely home. And we were initially concerned about storm runoff, erosion, and property values based on a prior experience that we've had in the neighborhood. And my wife had a delightful conversation with the Coles earlier today, who were very reassuring, and went into more detail, as Mr. Coles has done this evening, talking about overhanging roofs and permeable driveways and their intention not to clear cut the hillside. And now we found that very reassuring. But we're here tonight to make sure that going forward, not just now, but going forward, that the zoning board respects those 3 concerns that we have, namely storm drainage, the road and property values. These are not theoretical concerns. Unfortunately, we lived through a very painful experience related to the house above, at the top of the hill above our property, 114, which is lot 7A. And I think it might be helpful for members of the board to hear a little bit of the history of that, because it is potentially relevant, not necessarily now, considering the plans that you've so eloquently described, but in the future. That house, 114, lot 7A, was built 20 years ago. It was built on spec. It was not lived in for quite some time. And it was recently purchased by a Dr. Awa at auction. And after spinning off 2 properties, which have subsequently been developed, he attempted to flip the house. When the house was initially built, it's interesting, looking up at that hillside, you might assume that that house would not have any problems creating drainage or erosion. because it's so far up the hill. And if proper care had been taken with construction and so forth, it really shouldn't have caused any problems. But it did. And Tim Boyd, who was a prominent realtor in town, owned the house at the time, experienced torrential drainage. In fact, River Road was really more of a river. And he, at the time, brought that to the attention of Dick Smith, who was the selectman at the time. And Mr. Smith made emergency arrangements to have storm drains built along the road. And that was in 2010. And we bought the house in 2012. We've been there for 12 years. Initially, when we first bought the house, we had runoff problems, as everyone does during a heavy storm. But we felt relatively secure. And then the house was bought. That hillside was clear cut and all hell broke loose. The storm drains were overwhelmed. There are 5 of them immediately in front of our house and a 6th one further down the road. I took a walk up there today and I found standing water in 2 of the 5 storm drains in front of our home because they have been obstructed by silt and mud draining off that hillside immediately beneath that home on 114. So they're currently not functional. We, that is collectively, have had to deal with it. The town has had to resurface River Road twice in the last 10 years. Certain things took place just a year ago, and you can already see some unevenness in that in River Road, in River Road above our house. We ourselves had to excavate our driveway and create our own storm drain in order to deal with the overflow. And we've had to have a number of remediations, which were fairly costly in our basement, which still haven't solved the problem. So you can understand
Absolutely.
how sensitive we are about this. And I'm sure it was not the intention of the builder to clear cut that hillside. It was done, we think, I've never been able to speak with Dr. Ottawa to provide a better view to enable him to sell the house. And it is an eyesore. Not only in front of our house, but people going up and down the river. It looks like a bomb went off at the top of the hillside there. I mean, literally, it's been decimated. We want to bring this to the board's attention because things happen, homes change hands, things are done. The clear cutting was done without the knowledge or permission of the zoning board. And we learned firsthand what would happen if the zoning regulations are not applied and enforced as they were not in this particular case related to 114. So we would like reassurance on that point, and we would also respectfully request that the commission look at constructing an additional storm drain in front of a barn. We have an old New England rustic barn on the property, which will be right below your house, I believe. And it turns out that this barn is located directly between 2 storm drains that are 50 yards apart. In other words, there is no storm drain in front of our barn. We are renovating the barn in keeping with the old New England rustic barn. It's probably going to cost us $40,000 to $50,000, and we want to try to preserve that building. Now that you've had a chance to explain your plans, we're a little less concerned about it. As far as our point number 3, home property values. We don't expect that to be affected at all by your plans. However, you know, I think it behooves us to emphasize that a lot of the people like yourselves, like us, and many of the neighbors moved there, not just because they wanted to be a part of the Deep River community and they wanted to be close to the river, but because they value the woodlands and for the beauty and the privacy that they offer. And we would want reassurance that that there are no, that there is no additional clear cutting anywhere on that hillside, anywhere, in 114 or 1 Maryville, anywhere in the future. That's what we are here to emphasize to the board, and I hope that it's been useful to hear the history of the neighborhood there. Gives you some perspective on what can happen if things don't, if the wrong things are done. Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit of background, we do have updated and Gateway. So they've actually gone through and talked. And these are later on the agenda, but it's set of soil erosion controls, tree cutting. They went through and updated everything and said, look, this is where we think they're lacking. So we've gone through a bunch of this and this,
Yeah.
we want to put this, you know, in our regulations. So
Right, well, it turns out they're already in regulation. We reviewed the zoning regulations, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of them. But in section 14.4.8, it said there should be no clear-cut openings and a well-distributed standing between or other vegetation in ground cover shall be maintained. And then subsequently 14.4.8, this is Deep River
Yep.
zoning regulations, says that when removal of storm damage, disease, unsafe or dead trees results in the creation of cleared openings, these openings shall be replanted with native tree species. Again, I want to emphasize that 3 men with chainsaws decimated that hillside in 2 weeks. The tree trunks and all the debris were left where they fell, and they are there 3 years later at this point. And I know that the Cole family, as we are all very aggrieved at what happened there. And I realize this is not directly related to your application. We firmly support your application now that we understand it a little better. But want the board to be aware of what has happened in that neighborhood and how it has impacted everyone living there, and how all of the neighbors feel deeply affronted about what happened on 114. And I know you feel the same way. You mentioned that to my wife earlier.
Am I able to respond?
Right.
Just because it's an issue that's being addressed in the commission, which is incredibly important, and it is relevant to the application, especially because Gateway has reviewed this. And in their letter to planning and zoning, they want assurance that only the trees that are marked are being removed. So they've kind of followed through on their responsibilities as we, since we're, you know, we've adopted the regulations and continue to keep going with amendments to their intent in our regulations. But to the issue of the other property, has there been a complaint filed with planning and zoning such that we can enforce it, or notification to Gateway? Because again, the regulation was in place. Largely as a result of the staffing that we are afforded here, we don't do a lot of policing. You know, we're not looking for infractions and then enforcing, and quite often requires a complaint. And the situation that you're describing isn't just the clear cutting relative to the aesthetics or the view, but also has significant implications on storm runoff, which the town is incurring the cost of, and the butters are bearing the brunt of the discomfort and inconvenience and appreciation of your values. So as always, if you're listening, if we have any complaints on file, I think it'd be prudent for us to dig those out if there aren't. I don't know what the time frame is, but it sounds like it's recent history and still impacting properties. So I think that this would be a matter of enforcement, not relative to the application.
Yeah.
But going back to the application, there will be comments relative to Gateway's recommendation and our experiences, similar projects in recent history. Yeah.
Well, I'll respond to that. I will tell you that upon hearing sound of the chainsaws up on the hill, I investigated. I saw what was going on. I went to the previous first selectman, Mr. McDonald, and I made a verbal complaint. And then I got in touch with Gateway and wrote a rather extensive letter explaining what was going on and asking for intervention. So the response that I got, I did not put anything in writing to Mr. McDonald. But I was told in his office around the corner that it was their property and that they had the right to do anything they might want to do with that property. When I went to Gateway at the time it was happening and wrote my letter to Gateway, it should be on their file. They said to me that it was too far removed from the river for them to have any direct enforcing ability. That's what was said when this all happened 3 to 4 years ago at the time. Maybe things have changed. But I think you will find, if you go to Gateway, you'll find a letter from me which explicitly details what was happening. We considered legal assistance, but after speaking with Mr. McDonald, we thought, and naively, not looking at the zoning regulations, we thought that this was sort of standard of care in Deep River. And we only belatedly discovered that Deep River has, extensive zoning regulations. You have at your disposal to try to prevent and intervene when things like this happen. Going forward, again, we would like reassurance that no further clear cutting be done. We're not necessarily here or will be here to insist that Dr. Awa replant the area that he cut down. We would like to have the debris cleared from the hillside. I think everybody would like to have that done. So to the extent that the zoning board has enforcement ability, it would be greatly appreciated to all of the neighbors, the Coles, as well as ourselves, the other abutting neighbors, to have that debris finally at last picked up. Again, it would be exceedingly costly. There were a great number of mature and noble trees that were cut down. There was only one tree that was preserved. I think you know that one. It's close to your property. And everything else was cut to the height of a 3-foot stump, which you see throughout that piece of property.
I think your assumption that, addressing this for the selectmen would have resulted in the appropriate action. Unfortunately, the selectman doesn't have enforcement responsibility or even authority, and it needs to be communicated to planning zone. So I think by virtue of this meeting, we are on notice and we will follow up to see if there is anything actionable. And I would also suggest that we would, if the requirement was in place to replant, enforce the replanting, not just the cleanup, because we want to adhere to our regulations and not to
Well, yeah, well, real quick, so I don't know, if we're on the page for the.
We are.
There is a complaint form online, if you would, for planning and zoning specific. So if you would fill that out, that gets us in action.
So our letter, with the letter that you have concerning the Cole property is on record.
Yes.
And it appears to be a negative, because again, it really wasn't in the plans. It was what was not in the plans that we were so concerned about. And now that we know your plan, what we will do is we will follow up with a letter
Yeah.
to your board, giving our full support for the Cole family to build their home. And we will mention this other issue in the letter.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the audience, please?
I'll ask it.
Name, don't.
Mike Joya, Whittlesey Brook. Just basically, so this is a special permit. Why is it a special permit?
Because of the house is over 4,000 feet.
Inside the,
No, the living space, not the size. Everybody gets, the living space, not the footprint.
so it's the living space of the home, that's why you need a special permit, that's why we're here. I understand, thank you.
All right, anybody else, audience? If not, commission. Anybody commission? Online?
I do have some questions. Or first of all, the submitted is just a septic system. Do you in fact have a site plan that shows setbacks? I mean, I did.
That, yes, that have the setbacks on it. Actually, the setback is 20 feet and 30 feet.
Mhm.
So we're more than, this is 24 feet here, and this is like 40 odd feet here, 45 feet. So this is to scale and accurate with the floor plan.
Yes, you are compliant, so I'm back and I, you know, I mentioned the calculation of the cetera, and you got, you know, your tight point is on a screen porch and you're at 21, 22 as a
Right,
scale.
and that's
You're fine.
the big.
And then the aggregate is 50 or 45 on the other side.
Right.
There's one area that is prone to interpretation, and that's the required width of the lot.
Sure,
And I think your average width of the lot is compliant.
right,
And because it's what was submitted as a septic system plan, I'd like to have a site plan on record,
yes,
which actually shows those dimensions.
absolutely.
And shows how that lot width is calculated. Because we go across here, we're a little shy in the area that the house is in, but overall average and compliant. And I think it's I think in this upper portion, you're 170 foot wide.
Right,
On average, you do meet the 200 threshold. So I would ask, and we'll come down to this later on, whether it's a condition of approval or we demonstrate that.
sure.
The other issues that you call for easements, you required easements for your utilities.
They actually exist already, yeah.
So the easements are existing.
They are,
Okay.
yes, that's the easement through here. From the end of Merrill. The existing house is here. We're going to share that driveway.
Mhm. So if, I think with the application, I'd like to see the record of those easements.
Absolutely.
You can also mention limits of clearing. I'd like.
Yep.
Yeah,
If you don't, just.
Because that came from Gateway, and that's why I said
absolutely.
those comments are very relevant, not just in general, but to your application. Gateway would like to see documentation of the extent of the clearing.
Right.
And so on that site plan should show the extent of the clearing and.
Yeah. The only thing we're waiting for is, in order to get to the septic, there's going to be some access through here to get down there. So once we know exactly where he's going, then we can mark out which trees are coming out. There's not that many. The bulk of the trees are over in this area, which is what blocks the house.
This is gonna.
Well, you've got-
He's got an aerial photo, which
Yeah.
the septic goes in the bear department with
Yeah,
fantastic.
right,
Go
right.
look at the first one.
And that actually is an older picture because this is not there anymore. I mean, this was cut. I mean, that was cut through there. But that actually is growing up quite nicely now, and it's very green. So the house is right up in this top section here. And all of that stays. And of course, all of this stays. And that's where the septic is down there. So it's very much, I mean, the stark contrast to what's there.
So, two more comments, observations. You said you have an easement relative to the.
And that's not required anymore. This is the reserve septic system. They don't require that anymore, because originally, going back some time, that would have had to have been cleared and prepped, which would have been very disruptive to.
So if that's not required, and that's to have you remove that from the plan?
Well, it has to be on the plan to be approved,
Yeah,
but you don't have, you used to have, I know what you're saying, you
Yes.
used to have to install the select bill,
Yeah.
and they don't require you to do that anymore.
Okay, so the work is to be done, but the potential for the work, the set aside area.
correct.
Yeah, and that reserve beaching can't come up the hill such that you don't encroach on the roadway with the contour.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the picture that are running from your tank to your,
We're thinking of installing a turbine.
it's a water.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing is that you do have you're showing a swale here, which redirects runoff from a fairly large tributary, right? And it redirects it to this side of the site, which may impact the potential runoff. Similar issues as far as collecting silt. I almost suggest because the slope here is still a 2.5.
Yes, definitely.
So if you're collecting and have a continuous flow, that's going to continue to contour that and create a rivulet.
There is no actual evidence of, movement of water across that. So, I mean, I don't know why he has that on there,
I think he's trying to direct water so it doesn't flow over the septic.
away from septic.
Yeah. Mike, I was.
So I guess my recommendation, if you're going to divert
Yeah,
to accommodate your septic, you include a bioswale or some sort of natural boulders, which
Right.
would ensure that you're not going to have the water continue all the way down to the road.
right, yeah.
If you get silt collection, that'll be handled in this portion of the site. And if the septic ever comes into play, the reserve site, you can redirect.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, to me, because of the fairly significant tributary area and the relative pitch, this may become problematic. So
Again, going with the green roof and stuff, we don't anticipate really adding any additional water flow at all. I mean, it is the original plan that was approved. The stakeholder house that they had put in for the original application was a pitched roof and, the normal stuff. So we certainly feel that our retention area and lack of permeable surface is going to be significant benefit.
Tony's better at this than I, so I'll let him take over.
I was gonna commend you on the green roof, because that was my first concern, was, it's a big roof, I didn't see any stormwater stuff.
Yeah,
For your papers, that's fantastic. Two comments, if you
Sure.
were gonna keep this swale,
yeah,
I would consider putting a water bar, and what that does,
Okay.
is once you get kind of steep, you put stone across.
yes,
That way it slows the water down, it's not pouring through.
sure.
On your footing drain, I would like to see what you do is you make a T.
Yep.
And do perforated pipe with stone, that way it spreads the water out.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's, other than that, I think this is fantastic. I would like to see the septic up farther, but now that
Right.
you see that it's cleared and,
Yeah, yeah. It's it's the least impact.
Yeah.
Where it is.
Right.
Unfortunately, it costs about 3 times more than
Yes.
normal septic to
Yep.
get it there.
Yeah.
Which,
right, I was looking at the film.
yeah,
Oof. But yeah, those are my comments.
great.
Anybody else?
Historically, that area, so the whole thing is a cul-de-sac.
Hmm.
It was pretty serious selling.
It didn't matter so much because there weren't any people around to complain. You're not the first. But there have been, that area has been abused. And, you know, you tell somebody that they can't cut the trees down. And then the next thing you know, they cut the trees down.
Right.
Now what do you do? You know, these lawsuits, at the most frustrating thing from our standpoint, I think, is that it's, the advantage really is in favor of the property owner. The town is not equipped to deal with that. This is not meant to be an excuse, it's just a recounting. Thank goodness that been up there, has it been 15 years?
Yes, 16 now.
You know, like usually I'm half right.
That's very good.
Well. Thank you for your patience. See if we can get Alan to go up there with a shotgun. Yeah, people off.
Anybody online? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. All right.
Could I ask one other question, which might impact my recommendations, your time frame on this?
Good question. Really, because we have to get that in before the house is built. One hope was that we could get it in before this winter, so that then we could start fresh in the spring. So although the floor plan is finalized, the actual building permit application hasn't taken place yet. We're finalizing, you know, some the mechanicals and details and things like that. And because it is our final home, our resting place, we want to get it right. And so we're not rushing. So we might get set again through here, with a little luck. Fairly glad it will be next year. But we're not, you know, we love where we do it now. And we're not in a rush.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I asked that question, and it's because I don't like placing conditions for approval, and because it tends not to be enforceable.
Sure.
What I'd like to do is to say, these are our concerns, we'd like to have you address them and resubmit.
Right.
I think that your, what you submitted is better than a lot of what we see.
Mhm.
It's certainly well intended, but in terms of, you know, us trying to adhere to our regulations to the letter. I don't know what to say. I'd like to see these things corrected and documented.
I think in our current case, we've demonstrated clear intent to do things right. And, you know, we built it right, and we planted more trees than we removed. So we've demonstrated commitment. Yeah. We intend to keep that.
I was gonna say, so unfortunately, we have a slight dilemma anyway, so we do have to continue this the next month.
Sure.
So there was a problem with posting of the agenda on the website. It wasn't done in a timely manner. So we are gonna have to ask you to come back next month. Give you time to add a couple of conditions to them that we had. But again, like I said, I think a fantastic job with low impact development.
Thank you.
So.
Could I ask one last question? Too many people as a butters to request that the town manager or town engineers look at whether or not another storm drain would be required to fill the gap between the two that exist 100 yards apart. You know, the other storm drains that I referred to are 35 to 45 yards apart, but there is this gap.
That's okay.
Just gonna say, so right now, so we kind of have, this is funny, the building official is doing a lot of that right now. He's actually doing it up in Winthrop, over on Winter Avenue. So if you stop and see the building official, he's kind of.
Building
taking
official.
over right now.
Okay,
He's been helping the town throughout, so he's been boots on the ground.
great.
So drag him out there, Dick Lake,
What Dick Lee?
Lady,
Dick Lee.
so
Thank you very much.
absolutely.
And thanks for the opportunity.
It's caller. Thanks for the line.
All right, so,
Thank you.
motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue the next month.
Okay.
I will, second with the, condition that the items identified are addressed. At that point of the continuance, and I'm not sure if I'm wording it right, but you know what I intended.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to public hearing, item B, text amendment application, regulation amendment to add section 13.7 additional sign requirement, applicant need for planning. So that was just, hold on, the paperwork open away from me. So that was simply just to add, what's going from the proposed. Proposed sign is located within the village district shall be referred to the design advisory board prior to approval by the ZE or planning and zoning commission. And the changes of signage in the village district, any alteration to an existing signage, size or color shall be referred to the design advisory board prior to approval by the CEO or planning and zoning commission. But again, we can't have that. Any changes you guys want, or just push this off till next month? And I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think it's straightforward.
Okay. Why we had? What's that? Flag?
Mike Jones, Signal Road.
Hey, thank you. So Dunkin' Donuts, changed their sign after they had a special permit. And there's no requirement that they have to go back and get approval from design advisory. So it's kind of a loophole we're trying to close.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
absolutely.
And this is gotta be part of a bigger fix.
Yes.
But it's a obvious one and a present one. But overall zone enforcement of signing regulations needs to be done in conjunction with this, because I mean, I think we have a lot of instances along 154 and Route 80 where we've got signs that are not compliant with zoning regulations, let alone design review. So if you're listening, I'm not sure how we do that, whether this commission can request our zoning enforcement to review those mostly commercial lanes to see if there are major actions of our regulations relative to signage. Mostly pertains to projects that have come in for approval, but not approval for signage.
Ellen, could we amend that to this? Well, I have a two-part question for you. One, can we amend commercial lanes to this? And the second part is, do we have Route 80, 154 documented as commercial lanes anywhere in the plans or regulations?
So this, I'm gonna jump.
Maybe this is something we could address under the CEO report, so we can separate it from the.
Yes.
Yeah, this section specific to the village district, so there is signage, but it's in a different section, so. But again, we can't act on this anyway, so we just need a bump.
Okay.
That's the notification again.
I didn't make the 10 days.
Yes, well, no, so we had posted it in on our in the newspaper and all that stuff, but it wasn't the agenda wasn't available. And it's supposed to be available 24 hours in advance, so.
Yeah, that's happening with all commissions.
Yep. So just to be safe, we'll keep the public hearing open and
Just came out this morning.
so just playing it safe.
Yeah,
I
should
don't
we-
think anybody would go against this, but
Tony, if we're bumping it until next month anyways, can we add a similar section for the other sign section of the regulations? Do both
I
of
think
them?
yeah, we can, so I think we'll do that later on. We'll just say we need to bring this up and add it as a separate, because we'll have a separate section for that one too.
Okay,
Okay, motion to post, or to continue.
Motion to, Jim, in front of me, the decision on the sign requirements in village districts.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Everybody in favor?
Hi.
aye,
Aye. Thank you. I'm assuming no one's against both. Continue. Item C, text amendment application, regulation amendment to section 7A5 Village District 7A5 test definitions. 3 substantial alteration, applicant planning, applicant deeper planning and zoning. I believe section 7 is the stuff. Oh, hold on. 7A5. Oh, this was the, this was about the design advisories, a board's review of alterations to buildings after they've been, again, this is after approvals. If somebody gets an approval from the design advisory, they come to planning and zoning. And then a year later, they decide to paint the house pink. We don't, I think it's kind of in here. I think it reads right, but I was hoping design advisory board would show up and say, hey, you've missed this somewhere in here. I think it substantial alteration, item 3 seems to cover it.
It does, because it excludes changes of color, which are set of decisions. I think that there's a application made for a, if there is any change that is said again, it says it's less than 25%. It doesn't have to go to design advisory board. That is potentially very significant change, including roof lines, fenestration, color. A lot of those items in our current regulations are excluded from review. So
No, see 25%. I just say, it just says substantial alteration, including any amount of.
yeah, the section that was posted today, so I believe that that's what's current in our regulations.
Yes.
So the village district's overview. If you go down to definition of
Oh, see, I didn't print that part out.
safety repairs are not covered. Where there's a section that, if you go down further, that talks about, nope, sorry, not further, not down further, I think up further. It's the,
Facade or-
yeah. So this was not the intent when this was originally written, and the guidelines are at variance with what was put in the zoning regulation, which was done by Captain Jefferson. And you really should review some of the language in the applicability, because it talks about things like, provided lights, the 2/2 or 12/12, which is not relevant to the regulation.
Right.
And is not under the purview of
Planning,
planning and zoning. It is under the purview of review and advisement under design advisory. So we just need to clean up that language, create a separation between the advisory role of the design board and the enforceability by planning and zoning. But I think the sticky point here is the definition of substantial alteration, which puts a percentage on it, and it really is a more subjective decision. So I'd suggest that any application that is within the village districts, which has that intent that was driven by the POCD, is to preserve character. So all of them should be reviewed because there is the potential. The guidelines are written, so it's very permissive. It's not, it allows the applicant to interpret. So
Joe, can you scroll down just a hair so I can see that the rest of the applicability? little more where it says the 25%. So you basically taking out. I don't know.
Yeah.
B, C, right?
Yeah.
It should just, yeah, take B and C out.
And
Because,
so, yeah, it says, it shall not be construed to necessarily include change facade material or color. It's like, it's, you know, if,
if you're trying to create a downtown that's, everything's kind of melds together. And then somebody, like I said, somebody comes in and paints the windows pink.
Yeah.
That's not.
it's very clear that they don't want repetition.
Yes.
And, you know, and that there's a lot of latitude in it.
Yeah.
But,
Not our purview.
but it shouldn't be a matter of excluding, because if you put something that is potentially offend, you know, you can paint your building black as a statement. It would not be compatible with, you know what I mean?
The dance studio down at the end of town is black, so.
I'm not in the village zone, so my house
Oh,
is
it's.
black.
But you know, I mean, I'm saying, it's like, potentially, it's like,
Get it.
it might be very appropriate, but it's, and you say that this is why.
I
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
That was good. I forgot. So again, we have to punt on this anyway, but I would, my gut is B and C come out, but if you guys would read through this too and see if there's anything else you think should be.
So we're gonna continue this, and I think what we should do is get, data, you know, in fact.
Pick on this.
On this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is gonna get. I'm gonna poke at them and make sure they comment on this. Ready? Motion to. Continue this. Can't get this tonight. Anyone?
I'll move to continue the, public hearing on the,
And C.
item C.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we got a lot on here. Item D, text amendment application, amendment to section 2, definitions and proposed changes by the Connecticut River Gateway Commission, applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, it's everything that Gateway had gone through, redlined all our definitions. Definition for Connecticut River and the conservation zone and developed area. Some of our missing stuff. About height, that was the big one. They've actually added light pollution because later on, we're gonna look at the light pollution regulations.
So we're gonna separate, when we go to approval, we'll separate the light regulation, which is a new regulation, from the language smithing, which just makes us compliant.
Yeah. So, continue.
Yeah, I think they did the work for us.
They did.
We're all in favor of continuing to support the, the Gateway's intent. I would make a motion to continue item D.
Go ahead.
Seconded.
Hold on. No.
So, you have motion and discussion. So the words that we're adding from Gateway Commission were at a or in agreement with, and it's just additional, doesn't contradict what we have for.
So, yeah, a good example is our regulations still referred to the high tide line. And DEP did away with high tide. It's now the coastal jurisdiction line. So Gateway went through and picked on a lot of that stuff. They said, oh, you're still using NAVD 1929, you shouldn't be. So.
As far as more administrative changes to make the language, compliant and uniform with the other towns that are, are bringing in the Gateway recommendations. It's really administrative.
I have a first and second. Any more public comment?
No, on this section.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mm.
Item E, text amendment application amendment to section 14.4 Gateway Conservation Zone regarding erosion and sediment control, site plan, special permit requirements and exemptions, cutting of timber, building of earth materials, repairing vegetation and burning of So again, that was, this is the same thing that Gateway has done in every other town. They just want us to get on board with it, which we've been kind of punting on for a while. And not much we can do about it tonight, except for continue.
Joe Lucy Brook Road, again, thing. Premise of why the alliance with Gateway and other communities with the Gateway.
Yep, and then a lot of it was just like, hey, you don't call these
And it's updated to
provisions out.
permit, revisions and, guidelines and regulations.
A good one was like the tree stuff. They really expanded on the tree stuff. Probably because of the stuff that happened before. So there's a bigger section on trees now.
Very fast.
All right, thank you. You're welcome. Anybody else? Not for motion to continue. I get that one right.
So moved.
All right, second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 6, because we have no item 5. Appointment of a regional planning, or appointment to the regional planning committee. So Daniel Smith has been doing the regional housing plan, and the town of Deep River needs to appoint an alternate to the regional planning committee. And he is so graciously volunteered. He just
I
needs
have.
You have. I don't think you really got a say in that, but yes, you have.
I didn't, yeah.
Yeah, so. Anyway, with that being said, if you could have him go, that would be fantastic. Just need a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint Daniel Smith to the Regional Planning Committee.
Fantastic. Second,
Second.
thank you. Everybody, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Daniel. All right, on to reports. ZEO.
Hi, okay, so the one thing that I wanted to bring up, because this has come up a couple times and it came up again, last week. So I think it might be a good thing for the commission to consider changing in the use tables is clarifying, allowing or not, but I think it makes sense to, and I'll explain, but allowing for 2-family homes as of right. With the current regulations, single-family homes are allowed, and then accessory dwelling units are allowed, but there's this kind of this gray area with the 2-family homes still. That's why we had the variance a few months back with the gentleman in the Village District. We have another house where the person wanted to create with the assessor's office, make their home a 2-family home. And it's not allowed under the current regs, but it would be allowed if it was a single-family home with an accessory apartment. But our current regulations have limits on the square footage of an accessory apartment, which makes sense if you're kind of building inside a new building, but is a little bit more of a challenge if you're, say splitting a house in half and making a second floor into its own apartment. So yeah, so it's just something that's come up a few times, and I'm sure it's going to come up again. So it was just something I wanted to bring up with the commission about considering with the zoning use tables. So yeah, that was my only real kind of report based on some issues that keep coming up every once in a while with residents and their houses.
I was going to mention too that now that you brought that up is that it's also a lot of in the Village District, multifamily is allowed. So you can have a 3-bedroom home, but you can't have or a 3-person home, excuse me, but you can't have a 2-person. You can have a 4-person home or a single family, but not a duplex. Yep. Very,
But the duplex not a multifamily,
because multifamily is 3 or more in the definitions.
in your definition.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So,
Changes to 2.
but then,
This is a public discussion. Just one word.
yeah, sorry. But
So. If we're gonna have discussion on this, that I'm not in favor of family. I think it's that regulation is in place for a reason. The accessory use or the accessory apartment, meets a very explicit need of the town and the region, more so than a two-family. Because a two-family is going to be, market rate typically, and is not by, its virtue going to be qualified as affordable housing, whereas an accessory apartment will.
Unless we only allowed it as affordable housing,
What's that?
unless we only allowed it as affordable housing. Special permit for affordable housing. I mean, it's gonna have to happen at some
Yeah.
point because we don't have
Yeah.
enough.
But again, that's nuanced. I mean, it's not the point that's being made, or is it making a duplex as of right? A multifamily typically is going to trigger a, in the range of affordability. We can study that, but I don't think it's as simple as saying, hey, a couple of people have asked to do duplexes, so let's change our regulations. Just for a reason.
So I kind of see where you're going with that. I think a lot of it, though, if you look at where they've asked, is not directly on Main Street. So maybe that can be one of those ones that has an asterisk. I think we should look at it. If it's not on Main Street, I think duplexes should be allowed, because there are a bunch of duplexes that are not on Main Street. So if you take High Street or Kirtland, yeah, those Prospect, I think that's the one I was thinking of. There's a lot of two-family homes up there that aren't allowed, and the trailers they just tore down, that needed to be two-family, because there's two-family all around there.
There exists an avenue to do it, though.
That was all in a zone where multifamily was allowed and single family.
But
So what if we did the regs where only they currently allow multifamily and single family and put the duplex in, but not everywhere in town?
yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Just off of Main Street in a certain section. I wouldn't go,
Right, not all over the place.
right, you don't want to go
Right.
across, like tear down the clock place and put in the duplex.
So you're talking about an overlay zone, or is it?
No, just see, currently in the regs, we allow multifamily and we allow single
Yeah.
family, but we don't allow duplex.
Correct.
Like the Prospect Street application we did. Only those zones where you already have multifamily and single family,
Mhm.
do we do the duplex for now, not R80, R60,
Right.
just in the zones where we already allowed multifamily.
But I would,
Yeah.
I think I would still take it off Main Street, because there are a couple of things that say only off of Main Street, like you can have a,
Yeah, it's not fronting Main
right,
Street.
right.
Yeah,
So I think that might fit. I mean, again, we're not doing it tonight, but I think it's.
Yeah. So I think that, I don't know if this come up in a discussion of housing within the P O C D, but we don't have anything on record that shows, an intent to move in that direction of increasing density. But there's a lot of discussion relative to accommodate affordable housing. So they've got to get back together, in my opinion.
Agreed, and we'll check the existing P O C D, yeah, because it may be in there, I just not that up on it.
Well, in the P O C D, as we put it, we say we're gonna plan for affordable housing. We just haven't articulated it to this detail. So this would be one of those details.
Understood. Yeah. Okay.
So we're gonna put this on for next month to look at this a little harder. Great.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Anything else, Zoe?
Alan, I think you had mentioned some signage issues that you've noticed and asking about enforcement. So I guess on my end, I do enforcement on a complaint basis. So if a resident brings a complaint to me, then I look into it, but I don't patrol around. So if that answers your question, if you wanted to send me in writing kind of where to look, I can go check it out.
I can do that. So you're requesting me to essentially issue a complaint.
Yeah. Just so I can have record of all of it. And that way
Yeah.
it's just all on record, and that way, no one can claim that we're targeting them unfairly. It's all based on what comes into our office.
I can draft something up for you.
Anything else from ZEO? If not, P O C D.
Well, we're plugging along. Zoe has written up a very nice schedule about finishing, and hopefully, I would suspect by this fall, we will be finished and prepared to do a public hearing.
Right. And so I'm gonna follow up with this a hair, is that we didn't meet this month, just to give Zoe some time to put all our thoughts and gibberish into a working document. We still had information come in from the police department. We're still waiting on emergency services. And I know that EDC has asked me to come to their next meeting because they would like to go through their section again. That way they can give you more work to do.
And I will also add to that, that I did share the draft sections, and I emphasize draft because part of what I'm working on right now is kind of whittling down and looking for places where two different goals or actions are very similar, but not quite the same, and making it into one instead of having it, anyway, so I'm working on that right now. But I did share the, conservation, natural resources and conservation and climate change and resilience section with somebody from the Sustainability Commission. And Tony, does the EDC have the most up-to-date economic development section drafted, or did you share with them what now I'm trying to, because I just sent out the economic development stuff to the group, so.
If you just sent it to them, no, because it was a week or some change ago that they asked me to show them. So I'll make sure that if you just sent it out, I'll double check.
Well, not just sent it out, but that was the last batch of, the last email I sent for review, which a reminder to anyone who's overlapping with this commission and the committee. I've gotten feedback from Marion, but no one else yet. So send me any feedback you have as well. But the last email I sent out was for sections of economic development, climate change and resiliency, and community facilities and resources, except for the EMS sections, because we're still waiting to hear from them.
Okay. Any questions, comments? If not, on to attorney. Nothing from them, I hope.
No,
That's good.
nothing right now.
All right, Chairman, the only thing I was gonna mention that we haven't talked about is after countless meetings that Alan and I have gone to for ARPA funds, they finally have settled on some money for a downtown study. The town still has to vote on it, but the way they're pushing to for the town meeting seems like it's not gonna happen until September, maybe the end of September. Which doesn't give us a lot of time, so we have to lean on Zoe again. We needed a request for proposal for a village study, downtown village study, so. Again, that's preemptive, I'm assuming we're gonna get the vote. I mean, we may do this and we may not get it, but if we don't, there's not really any chance of the funds going anywhere else, so we just lose them at that point, I believe. So fingers crossed, I think we're gonna get the money. But again, we need an RFP for a downtown study.
So I'd recommend we talk to East Haddam, who has solicited a similar, albeit more comprehensive study that includes, inventory of infrastructure, parking, all that stuff, which, if I understand correct, we've been asked to exclude that from our study. But it may be necessary, just like sanding is necessary before you paint. So,
Right.
But if you, I think they share the RFP as that starting point for us.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to suggest we include SLR on the list of potential, distribution for the RFP too, because, again, they've done very similar studies in abutting towns that I think would benefit our study with some of the background information.
Oh, if we're gonna make suggestions, so we met with the Main Street, whatever they were there, with EDC. I think we should probably include them also, the main, I forget, it was like Main Street something
Yeah, Main
LLC.
Street, Connecticut.
Yes.
It's actually an agency that provides. It's a state-funded agency, that provides services to towns in Connecticut. Including kind of à la carte services. Largely focused on EDC.
All right, that's it for me. Budget. Outside of the ARPA funds and budget stuff, that's out of the season right now. River Cog Housing Committee, Daniel.
So we've been working on creating a formula to establish housing needs for the region. And in the past meetings, we have looked at how other areas of the country have done it. It had a great difference. In this last meeting, we had Connecticut Housing come and explain the Connecticut housing needs formula. And these formulas, it's essentially future needs of population growth divided by household size minus. It can get quite extensive. So our next steps, the next meeting, are going to try to decide how that applies to our region and tighten up a formula so we can do our own housing needs. Other news that somebody may be aware of is our neighbor Chester has established an affordable housing committee. And I'm going to be checking in with them to see how that is going. They have had different issues come to their planning and zoning than we have as far as affordable housing, with developers putting in stuff that I don't know if Zoe worked with them. I know John worked with them, and everything was by the book. But I guess they felt they needed to create that committee for communication with with Chester, and also to be sure that they had a better tight plan of what would be coming in the future. So I'll be checking in with them to see how they progress, and I'll report that back as well.
Great.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Questions for Daniel? If not, on to payment of bills. Bills? No, anyone? That's good too. On to adjournment. I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Fantastic. Everybody in favor?
I.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all, and we'll see you next month. Well, have a good night.